But that's the colonist view, I guess you would say there. Like I said, we'd like to welcome our visitors from England.
Hey.
All right.
Feel embarrassed right now? Feel like apologizing. Sorry for
No, that's
everything.
okay. I will share with you something I learned recently doing my studies on history. In 1930 now, 10 years before World War II, in the United States, it's been declassified as Code Plan Red. Code Plan Red. This was a plan for a war with England again in 1930. Why? Because England was still a superpower, the United States was still growing. And always the two superpowers are the two that will have issues. So I wouldn't say animosity, but the difference between the two countries was pretty strong right up until World War II, until we both needed each other. Come to find out, 1930, England also had a plan for war with the United States, coming through Canada down across the Great Plains. So these are history is very interesting, and it's not always what we think it is till we do the studies on that. So, if you would mind, I would like to do a brief presentation on our flags. With a little history in there too. Yeah, well, I'll get one of the young boys to bring it. From 1776, when our Declaration of Independence our independence was declared, the Declaration of the Constitution was signed in 1789. We became official nation under that Constitution of the United States. From 1789 to 1860, there were 4 major secession crises in this country. The fourth one being 1860. The first secession crisis was in 1791, almost just barely 2 years after we signed our Constitution. Massachusetts threatened to leave the Union. Massachusetts did put a bill out that all of the war debts from the Revolutionary War should be placed on the federal government, and all the states should be responsible for paying the war debt from the Revolutionary War. However, Virginia, Georgia, and I think South Carolina had already paid their debts off. They didn't want to be saddled with the debts of Massachusetts or the other states. It was resolved, it did not pass. The second secession crisis was over the Louisiana Purchase. Again, the New England states did not want to be responsible for paying 3 cents an acre for 500,000 acres of Louisiana swampland. There's nothing out there but wild Indians and swamps. Why do we want that property? Aren't we glad we did? Aren't we glad we did? I cannot come up with a third one. I think it was the Missouri Compromise over the issue of bondage of slaves. And then finally in 1860, the fourth secession crisis, when the southern states actually left the Union and we had our war. As you said, some call it a civil war, which the definition of civil war is 2 parties trying to control the same government. It's not a civil war because the southern states did not want to control the northern government. They wanted to separate and make their own government. So the war of northern aggression is a more accurate term, or the war between the states, or Mr. Lincoln's war. Let's go. Hey Rocky, why don't you pull a rabbit out of my hat?
Yeah, that would be.
Yes. 1860. This is the Stars and Stripes of 1860. The 36 stars. Now the pattern of the stars was not uniform. There were differences, patterns, but it was the 13 stripes with the 13 colonies, and the blue with the field of stars. When the South seceded, Jefferson Davis was in Montgomery, and he proposed to the Confederate Congress that the southern states take the Stars and Stripes with us. We should take the flag. We're taking the Constitution that was written by Southern gentlemen, tweaking it to make it correct. We should also take the flag as our flag, the Southern flag. The Southern Congress voted no. We will not take the flag from the northern states. We're going to make our own flag. Now, when the South first seceded, they had no flag. However, there was a flag that everyone knew. I don't have it with me, but I'm sure you've all seen it. A blue flag with a white star. Everyone seen this flag? Yeah. Called the Bonnie Blue flag. The Bonnie blue flag is the official flag of the state of West Florida. Anyone ever heard of West Florida? In the 1850s, Spain controlled Florida, South Alabama, southern Mississippi, southern Louisiana, and everything west of the Mississippi. The people from Mobile over, Mobile River, wanted to be independent from Spain. They didn't want to be part of the Spanish colony, they wanted to be American. So in 1850, they broke away from Spain, declared themselves independent. Their flag of independence was a blue flag with a white star, a single star. That's the flag of the state of West Florida, an independence flag. The southern people knew that this flag was an independent flag, so that's the first flag the southern people flew, was the Bonnie blue flag of independence. To make our first national flag, this design was presented and approved. I had it up here. I'm very disorganized, y'all forgive me. This is called the Stars and Bars. This was the first official flag of the Confederacy. The field should actually be blue, but it has faded out. The first flag had 7 stars for the first 7 states that agreed to succeed when the Confederate government was formed. Later, Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and I think Arkansas came in as southern states. But it's very similar to the Stars and Stripes because nobody is shooting at each other yet. We're 2 independent countries. We're all Americans. We're cousins. We're cousins. We'll be similar, but we're not going to be the same. Mr. Lincoln called for volunteers to start the war. Virginia succeeded. Tennessee succeeded. And he had 75,000 volunteers march into the South to put down the rebellion. This army was offered to one Colonel Robert E. Lee to command all of the Union armies, total command at the start of the war. Lee turned it down. I will not raise my sword against my home state. He goes back to Virginia, takes command of Virginia. President Davis appoints Joe Johnson head of the Confederate armies. Joe Johnson is still in California. So P.T. Beauregard is next in command. He commands our troops at Manassas. Battle starts. Neither army has a set uniform. Both armies are wearing blue, both armies are wearing gray, brown. There's no set uniform. The national flags from a mile away through the smoke and dust. Can you tell which flag would be which? Not unless they're blowing in the breeze. There was mass confusion on that battlefield of whose troops were whose. Southern states prevailed that day. General Beauregard went to his command and said, gentlemen, we have to have either change our flag or we got to get a battle flag. Let me back up one step further. Alabama succeeds in March of 1861. How many of you have ever seen this flag? Anybody recognize this flag? You know what it is? This is the Alabama secession flag. This is the flag that flew over the state capitol when Alabama succeeded. I used to know what the Latin translation was. Independent now and forever. I think it's touch me not, or we dare defend. That's it. We dare defend. That's the Latin translation. That's the cotton bowls with the snake of liberty and the independent Lady Liberty holding her flag. So, we've designed our national flags, but we must have a battle flag. There were lots of Scotch-Irish in the Confederate Army. The Scotch-Irish brought their traditions here with them when they came. The patron saint of Scotland is St. Andrew. Anyone know who Andrew was? Andrew was the first disciple of Christ. He was the most ardent disciple of Christ. Andrew lived to be 80 years old. The Romans crucified him in Paphos, Greece. He preached the gospel all across the Mediterranean, Asia Minor, North Africa, patron saint of Russia, patron saint of Scotland. When they told Andrew they were going to crucify him, he begged them, do not put me on the Latin cross like Christ. I am not worthy. Do not nail me to the cross like Christ. I am not worthy. They honored his request and tied him to an X. 80 years old, for 3 days, he was tied to this X, preaching the gospel. He converted so many people, the Romans cut him down, and he died. So he was martyred on the St. Andrew's cross. Second oldest Christian symbol. You would see in the movies when they would say, "Can you write?" "No, sir." "Make your mark." They would make an X. That is the St. Andrew's cross. That means I swear by Christ that I am who I am. I will honor this debt, or what I have written is true. This is who I am by the St. Andrew's cross. X is also the Greek symbol for Christ. So we see the pictures Merry Xmas. That is correct. It is a symbol of Christ, but I had rather see Christ. So they brought a flag to General Beauregard. I'm going to use this one. This is our company's battle flag, Company F. They brought this flag to General Beauregard. This is the St. Andrew's cross in blue, which is for power and strength. There's 13 stars in it for the 13 southern states. It was placed on a field of red to represent the blood of Christ. The white piping around the X is God's protection over the 13 southern states. This is a Christian flag. It's a Christian symbol. So now we have a battle flag. This would be one for the Army of Tennessee. The Army of Northern Virginia had a square flag. That's one way to tell the two armies apart. This one is actually across the field of Gettysburg. We need to change our national flag. So they met in '62. This is a very unique one here. And this was designed, they came up with in 1862. The battle flag in the canton on a field of white. This is called the stainless banner. Our cause is just. We have no stain on our heritage. This one is very unique because it flew over the Battle of Mobile Bay, the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Mobile Bay. This is the flag that we flew over for. This is my flag. The day we did the surrender ceremony, 3 black Suburbans rolled in. Security got out, talking to their cuff like they do, put their finger in their ear to make them look smart. A man gets out of the car and comes over and starts talking to us to get his picture made. I walk up to him and say, "Sir, would you mind signing my flag?" He said, "I certainly would. I would be proud to." I quote, "What I would be proud to." And anyone can read who that signature is right there? Governor Robert Bentley. You know the irony of this, don't you? Mm-hmm. 3 months later, he took all the Confederate flags down off the state capitol. For no reason, no pressure, no reason. Also on this flag is signed another gentleman, right there. God bless you, my brother and family. H.K. Egerton. Anyone heard of H.K. Egerton? H.K. Egerton was at one time president of the NAACP, National Advancement for Colored People. He was involved in all of those things. So he got to researching his family's history and found out he had Confederate ancestors. And his grandparents honored their Confederate masters. He earned their stories. Now he goes around the country wearing a Confederate uniform, waving a Confederate battle flag. He's one of our most ardent supporters. He is a great man to listen to talk to. Now we have a problem here with this flag. From a mile away, what do you see?
Surrender.
Oh, yeah.
Surrender or truce? Oh my gosh, doggone it. So we got to fix it. Late 1865, the final Confederate, this is the national flag of the Confederacy now. This is the third national flag of the Confederacy. They placed a crimson bar on the end of it. This is called the blood-stained banner. 4 years of war. There's been a lot of blood shed. This is the last official flag of the Confederacy, the blood-stained banner. I've been told, one day I picked this flag up and a fella come up to me and said, "Oh, I know what that is. That's the new white nationalist flag they just put out." No, this flag has been out for a long time, sir. I explained it to you. I was also told one day the first national flag of the Confederacy by a history teacher, "Why are you flying the Texas flag?" That's not the Texas. I know it is. I'm a history teacher. Bless your heart. And you folks in the South know what bless your heart means. It can go here or it can go here, either way. I've also been told that the bonnet blue flag was the South Carolina secession flag because they were the first ones to succeed. They got the first star. Bless your heart. These people are educated in public schools. Public schools do not educate anymore. What do public schools do now? They indoctrinate. You think I'm kidding? They indoctrinate. If you have children in elementary school, junior high school, pay attention to what they're being taught. Pay attention to what they're being told. That's up to you as parents. It's not the school's job to educate your children, it's your job to make sure your children are educated properly with the truth. I told that to a man on a train. We were doing a train robbery. I was questioning his 9-year-old son, some history, and his dad would go, "You don't know that? You don't know that?" And I turned to his dad and I said, "That's on you, buddy. That's your fault that he doesn't know that. That's your fault." Now, what are our children taught today that this flag means? This is a flag of hate. This is a racist flag. This is a flag of slavery. This flag flew for 3 years. Never flew over a slave ship. What flags flew over the slave ship? American flag, British flag, Dutch flag, Portuguese flag, French flag, Belgian flag, any nation that's involved in the slave trade. But the Ku Klux Klan flew this flag. And they're a hate group. I do not support the Klan. I will never support the Klan. The Klan was wrong for what they did. But when they started, they tried to bring law and order back to the country. The Klan flies this flag. Google Ku Klux Klan, Pennsylvania Avenue. You will see a picture of 30,000 rogue Klansmen marching down Pennsylvania Avenue. You know where Pennsylvania Avenue is? That's the White House. That's Washington, D.C. Largest Klan rally ever held in this country was held in Washington, D.C. in 1930. The largest Klan clappers in this country were in Illinois in the 30s. You would not be elected to political office in Illinois unless you were a member of the Klan. Do any of you remember when the Iron Curtain fell? Poland declared its independence. Gdansk shipyards, Lech Walesa, what were they called? Solidarity. What flag did they fly when they declared their independence? Anyone know? They flew a flag that means rebellion against tyranny. This flag is revered in the European countries. They know the truth. When the Berlin Wall came down, what flag was flown over the Berlin Wall? Rebellion against tyranny. When Ukraine invaded Russia in the 2005, what flag did the Ukrainian soldiers put on their tanks? Rebellion against tyranny. Quebec threatened to leave Canada, break away from Canada. What flag did the Canadian people pick up and wave? Rebellion against tyranny. Why is this flag vilified in this country? Because it means rebellion against tyranny. If a people have a symbol or a flag to rally around, they will unite and they will be strong. Patrick Claiborne outside Nashville told his troops, "Gentlemen, if we lose this war, Northern teachers would teach your children you were villains. You were criminals, and our flag is to be vilified." Who won the war? Who's teaching our children? What are they being taught? Correct history is what I'm all about. I don't believe in slavery. I don't believe in the Klan. I don't believe in racism. I believe in the truth. The truth will set you free. What we fight today in this country is ignorance. Because you're ignorant doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you don't know any better. It doesn't mean you don't know any better. I was in Marietta, Georgia, for the 150th Battle of Kennesaw Mountain. We had to go downtown because the mountain was full of troops. We're on the square. I'm speaking to a group of people, not much larger, about the same group here as you. Been speaking all day. This older black gentleman walks up. He's standing just 3 or 4 feet from me with his arms crossed. He had on old khaki pants, canvas tennis shoes, paint stains. I didn't know if he was a street person or what. I made contact with him, talked with him just like everybody else. I finished my presentation. I said, "If there's any questions, I will try to answer them." He said, "Son, I have some questions." Now, he was in his 80s. I knew not 50s at that time, so he had the right to call me son, and I respected him for it because he's an elder. He said, "I have been a member of the NAACP here in Georgia. I've He told me all the things he had done. He's an elder down at the local African church. He said, all that I've done and all I've went through, I never knew the things you told me about these flags. I never knew the history. And he said, thank you for finally someone explaining to me what they meant. And you ask me why I do this. That's why I do this. That was one of the greatest moments ever right there. And I asked the man, I said, sir, could I ask you a question? He said, if I can answer it. I said, tell me your story. Tell me what you went through. I can only read books and see films. And we sat down on a bench and talked for like 45 minutes. Now, our views didn't come together. Our views were different, but we had a conversation. And he told me his story. And that is one of the greatest things that I have ever brought with me out of this, is the communication. Why do you dress up? I had a fellow in Washington, D.C. in a restaurant. He said, come over to me. He's the manager of the restaurant. He said, why are you dressed like that? I said, because now we're having a conversation. If I'd looked like everybody else in this place, you would have never come over to me, and we would have never introduced each other, and we would have never had a conversation. And that is why we do what we do. All these men here today are volunteers. They pay their own way. They pay their own uniforms. They buy their own weapons. Take their own time. It's Father's Day. Where am I? I'm here. I'm here, and I'm glad to be here. Proud to be here. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions on the flags or any? Uh-huh.
Were they Christian countries?
Yeah, England, France,
Okay,
Poland.
So they saw it more as a Christian and...
They understand what it actually means is rebellion against tyranny. That's why the southern states left the tyrannical government. Does anyone know why Maryland did not succeed with the other slave states? Maybe it was because Mr. Lincoln had their legislature locked up and they could not vote. Does anyone know how Mr. Lincoln got nominated in his party? At their nomination rally in Chicago, his party printed up fake tickets to the convention and flooded the hall with Lincoln supporters. And when his opponent, I think his name was Douglas, came down to come in with his people, we're sorry, we're full. There's no more room. That's fact. That's fact. Look it up. It's in the record book. It happened. Most of the northern newspapers said, let the South go. Let them go. We don't want to worry with their problems. You know what Lincoln's response was? Who will pay our bills? 80% of the federal treasury was sponsored and paid for by the southern taxes. We were an agrarian society. We're not an industrial society. All the southern ports were spending rice, cotton, corn, tobacco, and being taxed. That's the only way the federal government was made money, was by through import and export taxes. Who will pay? We will be bankrupt in 3 years. All wars are over three things: money, religion, resources. That's the root of any war. Money, religion, or resources. Research it. Research it. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Congress passed a resolution in 1861 declaring the war was not about slavery. War was to reunite the Union. On the Lincoln Monument, you look at the Lincoln Monument, you look on the left-hand side, you walk around there. If I could save the Union by freeing all the slaves, I would. If I could save the Union by freeing none of the slaves, I would. If I could save the Union by freeing some and enslaving others, I would. I will save the Union. Anyone know there were two 13th Amendments to the Constitution? First 13th Amendment to the Constitution was sponsored by one Abraham Lincoln. It went to the Senate, went to the House, the states were going to ratify it. The 13th Amendment stated the federal government would not ever interfere with any state's servitude law, i.e. slavery. Strictly up to the states. The federal government had no say. This was in March of 1861. When was Fort Sumter fired upon? April. So if we were firing on Fort Sumter to keep slaves, why, when it was legal under the Constitution? As long as you will agree to pay 40% tax on anything coming in and out of your ports, we will let you keep your slaves. Granddaddy says, I'm thinking Granddaddy sold the King of England out like we were talking about, or a 3-cent tea tax. And we're going to pay 40% tax to the northern banks? Let me think on that note. No. There were more millionaires per capita in the state of Mississippi in 1850 than anywhere else in the world, in the nation. The money was in the South. We fielded an army, we fielded a navy, and fought for 3 years. blockaded. There was money in the South. We paid for that ourselves. I just found out not long ago that Arkansas finally paid off its Civil War debt in 1850. Reconstruction. When did Reconstruction start? Anyone know? When did the war end? 65. When did Reconstruction start? 67. They fought a war for 4 years to bring us back into the Union. They brought us back into the Union, took our senators and congressmen up there. They still would not vote the way the Federals wanted. Kick us out, put us under martial law, put us under Reconstruction. We're going to reteach these people. They sent down the carpetbaggers. They formed the Freedmen's Bureau. They set the two races in the South against each other. And we've been fighting ever since. And as long as we're fighting ourselves, the federal government is running amok. Who thinks we live in a free nation? Last week I bought a permit so I could exercise my Second Amendment rights. Last week I bought a permit and a tag so I could drive a car on our roads. Last week I bought a permit and a tag so I could ride my boat on water. Don't pay your taxes. What happened?
Land taxes too.
As I said, a Second Amendment right. I had to buy a tax. It's a free country. That's why I say, see what your children are doing. Watch what they're doing in school. Major, you need to close the bridge. We're going to here in a few minutes give you a little bit of a skirmish scenario, have a little fun with it, kind of show you what we try to do is present just a little bit of the history. Give you a chance to see it, feel it, ask questions. We wear wool. We wear what our ancestors wore. Why did they wear wool? Anybody have any idea why they wore wool? Yes, sir, young man. Cold. It's pretty cold today. It feels really good. Wool is a natural fiber. Wool will expand in the heat, allowing us to get a little bit of a breeze through and wick away moisture. In cold weather, wool will contract and insulate you even when it's wet. Wool is also a natural fiber. Now, where did the soldiers live? Camps. What did we cook by? Fire. What did we get our light by? Fire. What did we warm by? Fire. This linen shirt, if an ember from a fire lands on this linen shirt, it's going to burn right through the shirt, right into my arm, and I will have an open wound. More soldiers died of infection and disease than in any battle. That was the #1 killer of soldiers. You put 40,000 men in a camp with no facilities other than open pit latrines, you're going to have disease. Wool is fire resistant. It's not fireproof. An ember lands on my trousers, it's going to sit there and smolder and either fall off a minute or I'm going to flick it off. Soldiers were still wearing wool up into World War II because of that very purpose. It's durable. When they ran short of wool, they ran short of cotton. They combined the two to make jean wool, which is the precursor of blue jeans. Some of it's very coarse, some of it is very fine. That's just some things that I popped up there that you might want to check into. All this information is there. All you got to do is research it. If you go through Google and look for something, do not read the first 3 or 4 articles. Google puts those articles up because those people paid for them. That's their opinion. You have to go down till you get to records and facts. That's when you find the information. Like I said, the first 3 or 4 articles are going to be opinions. What some professor or some learned person wants you to believe. So, but like I said, it's all there. It's all ready to go. Okay, if you give us a few minutes, we're going to get set up here. Thank y'all for coming to the wedding today. We hope to have a good groom. The groom is still not here, but he should be here soon, we hope. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. St. Andrew's Cross. It is a Christian flag. Do you remember when they made Georgia change their state flag 4 or 5 years ago because they had a Confederate flag in it? What kind of flag did the Georgia State Legislature change it to? Look at it very closely. It is the first national flag of the Confederate. Boy, they showed us, didn't they?